destructive power of beliefs in individuals and collective societies. The world daily presents stark evidence that human civilization has not been evolving at all. We are as conflicted as ever. Powerful billionaires and multinational corporations who control the world's politicians have funded think tanks to disseminate harmful beliefs amid the masses, turning society against itself. They then convince people to support false leaders, as well as policies destructive to the well-being of most citizens and the environment. Then the oligarchs and multinationals can hoard the planet's wealth while trashing the environment with their impulses that are dissonant with nature. Let's step back for a moment and look at some definitions. What are the differences between thoughts, ideas, beliefs, delusions, and faith? Starting with a simple thought, which is akin to a simple sentence, a thing a person thinks within a moment in time. If you string multiple thoughts together, either through a compound sentence or a paragraph, your thought becomes more complex. Thoughts, though, are generally malleable, capable of being modified or discarded as one gains more information. For example, I may have the thought, Alice is a kind person. It is a vague, rather simplistic thought in the moment. A deeper, more complex thought might be, Alice is a kind person as seen in her willingness always to volunteer at the homeless shelter. Now I have supported my thought with some specific reasons, all in the same simple sentence that now has a string of modifiers. Most dictionary sources define an idea as a string of thoughts related to some plan or process. For example, I might have an idea about how to add a room to my house, and this idea involves numerous considerations. A belief is permanent, a fixed thought, whether simple or complex, deeply ingrained in a person's sense of real or right. As such, a belief is rather unmalleable, and a person will tend vehemently to hold on to a belief. Whereas changing a thought can happen without difficulty, usually a belief changes only with a quantum change in a person's life experience. With rational people, beliefs can change in the face of unimpeachable evidence. Think of a thought written in moist sand and a belief written in hardened cement. The key thing to keep in mind here is that a belief is a fixed thought, not proven by empirical facts. If it was, it would be a fact. For example, I can measure a person's height and it is a fact that she is 5'1". It might be my belief that she is a short person. The problem with our world is that people have been and still are literally killing each other over beliefs. Very often these beliefs are based on fear, predictions, or even religious ideas. Many people think that their beliefs are very special and that those who do not share those beliefs are inferior in some ways. For example, a religious nationalist might believe that a society's laws should be based on whatever their preacher says is right or wrong. They want all of society's governance to be based on their own beliefs. Such thinking is absurd. Every person whose brain is functioning has a collection of beliefs. I believe some stuff, some other guy believes some other stuff. I'm not special just because of my beliefs. My beliefs are just unproven thoughts I have about people and things, nothing more. Regarding delusion, Kiran Chandra and Chaudhuri Suprakash wrote the following. A delusion is a belief that is clearly false and indicates abnormality. The false belief is not accounted for by the person's cultural or religious background or his or her level of intelligence. A person with a delusion will hold firmly to the belief regardless of evidence to the contrary. Delusions can be difficult to distinguish from overvalued ideas, which are unreasonable ideas that a person holds, but the affected person in that case at least has some level as to its truthfulness. A person with a delusion, on the other hand, is absolutely convinced that the delusion is real. Unfortunately, delusions can destroy personal lives, turning a person into someone highly disordered. Delusions show up in many clinically diagnosed people with such conditions as psychotic disorders, delusional disorder, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, dementia, and others. One thing to consider regarding delusions, many people today cast the opposing political party as living within mass delusion. But psychologists generally point out that clinical delusion exists on a personal, unshared level, such as believing that one possesses extraordinary talents that no one else can see. Meanwhile, self-deception is a behavior people will do to affirm their emotions or personal interests. For example, a person might choose to believe an election was fraudulent if they despise the candidate who won. By contrast, a delusion is an uninvited belief happening to someone who is pretty ill. It might be a defense mechanism to suppress a severely impaired self-image or feeling of powerlessness or a history of guilt that hasn't been dealt with. People choose self-deception due to certain motives. If people wanted to, in theory, they could choose to stop deceiving themselves. They would have to be willing to admit the absence of facts to support their position. One problem with this is the vast propaganda networks that are out there lying to people, whose minds are so bewildered that they cannot distinguish facts from opinions or misinformation. It's a sad state of affairs. People need to learn critical thinking. When large swaths of society choose self-deception, strife and conflict occur. People living in self-deception are vulnerable to manipulation by people and forces who can only maintain power by tricking the masses into giving them that power. On a personal level, they might also find relationships difficult to manage. So what is faith? Even though it is a belief in something unseen, as Paul says in Corinthians, it is not a delusion. Remember, a delusion is a belief that has nothing to do with one's cultural background, and religious faith is certainly cultural. I like to think of faith as a belief rooted in hope or even love. Even though it may lack empirical, scientifically provable evidence, it has the potential to ease a person's mind, maybe even to trust in a higher power. However, when a religious belief results in bigotry, hatred, and distorted ideas, that is faith gone wrong. It is belief gone wrong. Dostoevsky teaches us in Crime and Punishment that trying to apply philosophy absolutely into real life can result in tragic consequences and perversion. Faith that leads people into hating their neighbors, into forms of supremacy, bigotry, and violence is a broken faith. Now, it is hard to live without believing certain things. But we should view negative beliefs as red flags. It is probably best to be very skeptical of anything we believe. This is because many beliefs have crept into our minds from outside sources, not from our own personal experiences. Many of us walk around believing things just because some purported authority has told us to believe in them. This is a bad, harmful pattern that is extremely limiting, preempting flexibility. Humans need to be more skeptical of the notions cemented in their brains. I appreciate you watching this talk. If you found it intriguing, I'd encourage you to watch my 4-part series on critical thinking posted here on my YouTube channel. And happy thinking, take good care.